everyone, welcome to our first Friday afternoon fun session of our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. This next 4 or 5 weeks, we've got all kinds of really fun activities lined up for you. Different cultures, different countries represented. Today, we're going to be working on a craft that you have probably seen around Mexico. We've got Papel Picado. It's these paper. Usually I see them as flags, but I think you can make different shapes too. But with these cut out pieces, making a nice decorative design. They're usually in a lot of bright colors. So for my supplies, I have here a pack of different tissue papers. I've got a whole bunch of bright colors we can use. I'm going to show you an easy version and a hard version today, so depending on your age and your skill level and the tools you're allowed to use at home, pick the right one that's going to work for you. So for our easy version, I've got scissors and a hole punch. And for our more difficult version, I have a cutting board, an X-Acto knife, I've got some painter's tape, and I have a stencil that I just printed out online. I just did a Google search for Papel Picado and picked out a design that I thought was pretty cute. So let's jump in. We'll do the easy version first and then we'll do the harder version. All right, so you've got your piece of tissue paper. We're gonna start with our easy version. So we've got our scissors here and our hole punch ready to go. First, you can see my piece here is pretty big. I mean, I could make a really big one and hang this up if I wanted to, but I just don't have enough space. If I hung this in my doorway, I'd hit my head on it all day long, and I don't want to rip it. So I'm going to cut it down into a bit of a smaller shape. So I'm going to show you a nice way to do that. You can see, because this was folded in the package, there's some lines here. So you know, if your lines are in the place that you want to cut, you can use those lines to help you out. If you don't have lines or you don't want to use those particular lines, you can make some folds to help guide you. I'm going to give mine a fold directly in half here, and I'm going to crease it. That crease is going to show me where to cut. Okay, so I'm going to cut that way and get it shorter. Okay, so I've got my half paper here, and I'm going to do the same thing to get it shorter along this way. But I want mine to be a rectangle, so I think I'm going to fold it about here. And now if you wanted to make multiple of these and have them all the same size, you would want to give your paper a measure to make sure you're making them all the same. But I'm just making this one here, so I don't need to get my ruler out. Okay, I'm going to set my papers aside, and I've got my one paper here. If you want, you can try and get those creases out a little bit. If you've got a big heavy book at home, you could set a big heavy book on top of this either before you get to cutting or afterwards to help you flatten it out. We're just showing you today, so I'm not going to set a book on it overnight and come back, because you don't really need to see a video of waiting on the book. So mine's just gonna have some creases in it, but there are some ways you can get those creases out. So if you have ever made a paper snowflake, we're gonna use a pretty similar method to make our Papel Picado flag here. You are gonna be able to fold in different directions to be able to cut symmetrical shapes out. And now if you're a planner, you can grab a pen or a pencil, probably a pencil because that will draw lighter, but I only have a pen here. And you can draw some designs to make sure you've got things as even as you want. So I folded mine in half here, the hamburger way. And I'm going to, let's see, I think we'll draw some flower shapes in here. And we'll do some scallops and some circles across the bottom. I'm drawing fast here just to give you an idea. If you want yours to be more exact and even, then you should get your ruler out and do some measurings. So you can go around and do these kinds of planning designs, or if you just want to wing it, that is okay too. So what you're going to do to cut these shapes out and make sure they're symmetrical is that you're going to fold where you need to. So for example, on this flower here, if I cut this piece out, it's on the fold, and so it's gonna, instead of making this like a half moon shape, it's gonna make more of an oval shape. And if I want these two to match up, I can give my paper another fold right here so that I can make one cut and get those to be the same. We'll show you how that works here. Okay, so you can see I cut these little pieces out, and then when I open my paper back up, I have matching gaps that are nice and symmetrical on each side of where I folded. Now you're going to get a bunch of folds along as you do this because you know you're folding in all directions, and at the end, if you want to get those folds back out, you can do that tactic with the book that we discussed just a little bit ago. So now I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to keep going. You saw I folded this, perpendicular. You can also fold on a diagonal. Maybe for this next petal, I want to fold this way. So you can fold in all directions. I'm going to go ahead and just cut a bunch of cool shapes out, and then we'll see what it looks like at the end. Okay, so I have this nice group of flower shapes and some diamond shapes here. And you can see that, I had the idea of having this little scalloped edge. I've seen that on a lot of these Papel Picado flags. Now, if you are not a measurer and you want to just try and cut your scallops all at once, you can give this guy a little accordion fold, or just keep folding in halves until you get to the size of one scallop. So I'm going to do that just to show you. Now, if you have, like a few different flags piled on top of each other here, or if you have a thicker kind of paper, you might have a hard time cutting just the one scallop, depending on how many folds you need here. Okay, So I've got it down to about the size I'm gonna do for one scallop. Now this part will be really easy. I just have to go and cut a nice, even loop. And I'm gonna get my hole punch out here. I had, you know, when you saw that it was drawn, so I had a like a hole in the middle of each scallop here, so I can do that with my hole punch right now. If you don't have a hole punch, you can also do it with your scissors. The hole punch just makes a nice, really even circle. So let's open it up and see how nice that looks. All right, there we go. We've got this beautiful Papel Picado flag, and I'm gonna just set a book on it for the night, and then I'll be ready to hang it up. And so if you're doing the easy version, you're good to go. If you're here for the harder version, stay tuned. We're gonna jump into that one next. All right, friends, we're up to the advanced level here. So I have another piece of tissue paper. I have blue this time, but I cut it down the same way. It's the same size as my pink one from before, so that I can hang my flags next to each other and they'll still look just as great. I've got my paper on top of my cutting board. You can see that I have this little hole in my cutting board, so when I line up my paper and my pattern, I'm gonna make sure that the part of the pattern that has some empty space is gonna go there, because I cannot cut across this, otherwise I will cut the table. So when you're laying your paper out, make sure anywhere you need to cut, you're gonna have something underneath that is gonna keep your table nice. All right, so I have here this cute little pattern. It's got some birds and some hearts and some nice shapes. One of the things that I often see in these Papel Picado designs is, if you've ever done some filet crochet, you have these gridded lines in the background with these awesome designs on top. And now this is something that you could do sort of with the symmetrical cuts, but it would be a lot harder to cut it out like the snowflake with our pink one that we did. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to put this down on top of my blue paper, and I'm actually going to line, you see this edge here? I'm going to line this up with the top of my tissue paper because I want less cutting to do. And I'm going to use some of this painter's tape just to help keep my design in place. I like the painter's tape because it sticks pretty good, but it comes up nice and easily when you're ready to take things back off of your design. So I'm gonna tape this down here. I'm gonna get it across my tissue paper. I'm gonna get it on my cutting board, and I'm gonna get it on my table. That's not gonna go anywhere. Same thing over here. And I'm gonna put some in these corners here. I'm gonna go with a tiny little piece. I don't want it too much on my tissue paper because the tissue paper is a lot more delicate than other kinds of papers. So, just enough to get it so that it's gonna stay in one place. And then, when you're ready to take it back off, you're gonna be really gentle about it. And that painter's tape will come right back off your tissue paper, no problem. Okay, so I'm all set up here. I've got my design. I just went on Google and I Googled Papel Picado stencil, and I looked through a bunch of designs and I picked this one out. So you can pick out all kinds of designs that way, or you could even draw your own. Now I've got my X-Acto knife here, and very simply I'm going to go around and cut. Everywhere on the paper that is white is parts that I'm going to cut out, and everywhere that is gray is part of the tissue paper that I want to leave in my design. So I'm just going to go through and cut all the designs out. Okay, so we've got all our pieces cut out. Originally I had cut this tissue paper to be the same size as my other flag, but you know, I just really liked the edge here, so I wanted to cut that out. You'll notice that I didn't cut out these dots. They're not my favorite, so I just left them in. You can change up the pattern to match what sorts of things you prefer. If you made your painter's tape on and your flag is this size, you're going to want to be careful taking your painter's tape off, but since I decided to make my flag smaller in the end, I can just kind of give it a bit of a rip here and not worry too much about being careful with my tissue paper. So I'm going to lift my stencil off and oops, still got a little bit on the corner here. And let's see, oh, still got a few places we're connected here. Let me just touch it up. All right, there we go. So we've got here our beautiful flag. Let me get this stuff out of the way so we can see it looking nice. Got all my little paper bits here. You have to do a nice little sweep once you get it. Look at that. We have our beautiful Papel Picado flag. There's the one that we cut with the X-Acto knife, and here's the one that we cut with the scissors. Look at how nice those both look. All right, so go ahead and cut your own. You want to see what you do. Use one method or the other or both. If you're doing either of these, you can stack different colors of tissue paper and cut a few out that are the same. Enjoy, have a lot of fun, and we'll see you with our next project next week.